You're welcome to the Conscious Living Show and Dublin City FM. My guest this week is Nicola Connolly Byrne. And Nicola is a multi-award winning empowerment specialist and founder of I Am Positive Mindset. Now, Nicola, you're a woman on a mission to help people empower themselves. And I say, something I read someplace where you were 7 years of age when you were doing the equivalent of journaling in order to be able to sort out what was going on in your own little head.
Yeah.
Could you describe, Nicola, that experience?
Well, can I just say before we start, thanks ever so much for the gorgeous introduction. And I always get super, super excited when I know you and I are going to be talking. Something always happens when you and I are having a conversation. So I'm really, really looking forward to today.
Oh, I'm delighted. I love chatting to you too, because I can really, really tease things out for people,
Yeah.
But look, talk to me about that little kid at 7, writing all this stuff down.
Yeah, I suppose when I was 7, I was very, very challenged, Liz.
Yeah.
I did a lot going on. And I just knew that I was trying to put what was going wrong right. And I didn't know how to do that. Yeah. And the only way in which I could was literally to write my thoughts and start writing. And in actual fact, this is pre-internet days, Liz, there was me and a pen and a piece of paper. And the only way that I could do any research at all was I had do you remember the little pocket Bibles that you'd get when you made your communion?
Yes, I do, yeah.
So that's where I got some of my inspiration from. I would go back and look up in the back of my Bible, the little tiny white one.
Yeah.
There was words, or there was, it was describing meanings of situations, and then there'd be a number, and I'd have to go and look up the number of the parable or the number of the verse, and I would read it and try and apply it to my life.
And you were only 7 when you were doing this?
Yeah, I was only 7 doing that. And if I'm honest with you, Liz, it's actually just after clicking with me now as I'm talking to you, that's what I do even still when I'm studying.
But you see, that's why it fascinated me, because I have watched you work with people at, let's say, some of your events.
Yeah.
And I see you do that. And this is what made me sort of, dear God, you were doing this at 7.
Yeah, I was. Now I wouldn't be an overly religious person, Liz. As you know, I'm more spiritual than I am religious. But look, it served a purpose for me at the time, and it got me through a tough time when I really needed guidance and help.
Yeah. Well, you see, we all need something to help us get as far as the door. And then eventually we have to move through that door ourselves to find out who we are,
Yeah.
So that's what you were actually doing at 7, which is fascinating. But Nicola, every single last one of us is conditioned. We're all conditioned by our childhood experience.
Yeah.
We can sleepwalk through life not realizing we are. But sometimes it does take, even Eckhart Tolle speaks about it, it'll be the crisis that helps us to wake up. But insight is not enough, is it? You have to begin the process then of growing up. Like you wake up and then you have to grow up.
Yeah, I'm really glad that you described it that way, Liz, because some people don't ever wake up. Some people stay asleep their whole life.
Yeah.
And I've invented this, the 5 stages of consciousness. So it goes from coma to asleep, to slumber, to awake, to higher self.
Yeah.
So some people will just literally sleepwalk through their lives, and if they're really bad and in a lot of emotional pain, they'll numb themselves so much that they will be in a coma.
Yeah.
But you described it there about being awake. And then you said something else, actually. You said about walking through the door, and what else? What was the other thing?
Exactly. You've got to, it's like with religion, something takes you as far as a certain spot, and you hold on to that like a crutch. And in a way, all our conditioned selves, in some ways, we adapted to survive.
Yeah.
So it took us a certain distance, but then at the point we have to grow up.
That's
we don't realise. Some people I hear, and I've gone and I've listened to a lot of people, Nicola, and they talk about waking up as if you get this flash and this beam and everything just melts away and life becomes enlightened. It does not.
No,
you wake up and then you've got to grow up, don't you?
Listen, I've had many spiritual experiences, you know, but the majority of them have not been like that. So this is what you triggered in my mind, and I lost me train of thought, but this is what I wanted to say. Sometimes you can wake up, Liz.
Yeah.
But you choose to stay stagnant. You choose to stay where you are. And the difference between waking up and growing up is when you learn something new that you apply it to your life if you know it's going to bring you to the next level. So basically it's about action taken and getting outside your comfort zone.
Yeah.
Because I say to people, you know, they come to my workshops and you've actually been at them, and people are furiously taking notes and everybody says, oh, it's such a great day. It was a wonderful experience. And I say to them,
my life has changed.
Yeah, I don't care. I don't care if you had a great day. I don't care. That's not what I'm here for. What I'm here for is that what you wrote on that page is not pretty words, that you actually wrote an action plan that you are willing to take new action on, because it's pointless, it's useless, and you're lying to yourself unless you're going to take that information, go through the discomfort, because growth only happens in discomfort, emotionally or physically, mentally or spiritually, and run with it. But I suppose, going back to me starting to writing at 7, that's what I do now, Liz. When I'm listening to people who inspire me, I am writing furiously. If my body is talking to me and I'm going, yeah, I like what they said, I'm writing that down. But I'm not only writing it down, I'm rereading it, and I'm rereading it until it becomes part of my life. If I know it's going to benefit me, I'm definitely taking action on it.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Absolutely. Because you see that sometimes you just have to keep getting it so that it becomes familiar to you. You see, it's when something is unfamiliar, you can forget it. But it's a bit like riding a bike.
Yeah.
You know, you start it out and you fall off it and you have to get back up again and back up again. But you have to literally do these things a good few times so it now becomes your familiar, and off you go and stretch the next one, isn't it?
Absolutely. But I suppose people get very frustrated sometimes when I say to them, that's your choice. They say, how do I do it? How do I make the changes? I don't know how to do it. And I'm like, I just gave you 40 tools in the last 2 hours. It's a choice to pick them up. You can take the horse to water, but you cannot make them drink. And I'm not even the water, I'm only the feckin' tap. But
I love it.
But at the end of the day, it is a choice. Like everything that every decision that you're making, or every scenario that you have going on in your life at the moment right now, that's a choice. So if you're complaining,
you have a choice even to say nothing and do nothing, and that's a choice too.
Oh well, no response is a response.
No response, it's still a response.
Yeah. So I'm big into discussing choice with people, because if they're bemoaning and complaining about, and then this happened, and sure, they're still doing that, that's your choice to still participate in that. That is your choice to still accommodate negative behavior being, targeted towards you. That is your choice to allow that into your life. And you may have never spoken up for yourself before. You may have never used your voice. You may never have articulated yourself in the way that you wanted to, or put your boundaries in place.
Yeah. And sometimes too, Nicola, it comes like when you wake up, you begin to recognize it, you begin to see it. And it's when you see it, then you can see the uncomfortable, because you begin to see, God, I am programmed. God almighty, I am asleep. But individual lives are fascinating to me, but we're all so much more similar than we are different, aren't we?
Totally.
But the language of our childhood, if we're not awake, the language of our childhood can still be living through us. Like feeling that you're the difficult one, therefore you better sort of kowtow to people, or you're the messer, or you're the good child, or I remember some mother calling her child a dud. It'd be a waste of money sending her to something because she's only a dud. So it's in there, in the subconscious, but you don't realize that, as you say, with choice, you're actually continuing the abuse if you continue to do this, don't you?
Liz, I only spoke about this recently. Why would you pick up the whip of abuse that somebody else handed you and continue to abuse yourself in the way somebody else has hurt you? Now you're hurting you.
Yeah.
It's not okay. It is not okay. As soon as you become awake and you're aware of all of this, I often do an exercise with my clients whereby we examine our inherited traits from our parents or the people who are closest to us when we were growing up.
Yeah.
And you would not believe the amount of men and women that I've worked with that have said to me over the years, Jesus, that used to really do my head in about my father and my mother. And I swore blind I'd never do that when I got older. And I actually am.
Yeah.
I actually am doing that thing. I actually do speak like that. And it's a very sharp smack of reality. But as soon as people can't make changes unless they're aware of the changes.
Exactly.
The only way that you're going to become aware is if you allow yourself to be vulnerable enough to do the self-analysis.
Yeah.
If you're
where I used to find it very, very helpful would be because I worked with children. Mm-hmm. When children would challenge me, right? And I reacted in a way my mother reacted, or my father, or a teacher, or somebody. In those moments, I would see, wow, I am now handing out this abuse to them that was handed out to me.
Yeah.
That I find children are amazing mirrors for you when you're doing something like that, or anywhere in a workplace where you see things going on.
Absolutely.
It'll always be our reaction, won't it, Nicola?
Absolutely. But my two kids are my biggest teachers now.
Yeah.
Because anytime like you just said, I react, or I speak, unkindly, or I might make a decision that's not in alignment with my values, I have to pause and reflect and say, right, well, why did I do that? What lesson, if I have this uncomfortable feeling in my body, that's my body talking to me. That's my soul speaking to me. There's something not okay here. What is it that I can't recognize in the moment that I'm doing or saying that is not okay for me? So I might have to go off and do a bit of writing, or I might have to go off and do a bit of self-reflection. But if I ever am out of order with my kids, or I make a mistake, or I raise my voice, or I have a bad day, or I'm just in bad humour, I'll always go back to them and pull them aside and say, listen, you know the way I'm your mummy? Well, I'm not only your mummy. I'm somebody's wife. I'm somebody's friend. I have a lot of clients, and sometimes I don't have my shit together. Sometimes I lose the head. And when I was out of order that day, or that moment, or an hour ago, I apologize for that.
Yeah.
And I'm working on that. So it brings your children into the realm of, well, she's not only me ma, she's a person in the world who has challenges and problems. Yeah. And I'm very open and honest with my kids. I keep them involved in all aspects of my life, including the business. Yeah. And they respect that. And it's actually brought us much closer, Liz.
Well, it is, because in actual fact, they're part of a team. There is nothing worse for a child where everything is done for them and they're made to feel as if their contribution is not worth it.
Oh, no, none of that, Liz. No. I wrote a workbook at the weekend for children. It was an extension on from the workshop that I did last summer. Yeah. And part of what I wrote was, it's with regard to confidence and resilience. And part of what I wrote was, no purpose, no confidence.
Absolutely.
If a child does not have a purpose, and I don't care if that purpose is to sweep the kitchen floor, or empty the dishwasher, or do the bins, or tidy the room, I don't care what it is. But a child has to be given purpose on a daily basis.
Yeah. They have to feel they're part of the team. They have to feel they have some importance. And they also have to feel that they are secure in your presence, that they trust you. They trust being around you, that you will actually be that mirror, that guide, that person they can look to and say, okay, there's a path I want to follow. There's a truth I want to follow. They've got to see it in us. This is why I find it all so fascinating. But we can't do that unless we see it in us first. So instead of trying to fix the child, when we sort ourselves out, this will come naturally.
Yeah, I say that to clients all the time. If clients ring me and say, oh, my child, and the confidence is on the floor. And, I assess the situation, I listen to the information, and sometimes the child might just need to do a workshop for confidence and resilience. Yeah. But every now and again, I might say to the parent, do you think me and you might work first together? Mm. And if you feel that you need help for your child then after, absolutely. But I'll make a judgment call and say, no, if your child is not witnessing you minding yourself, you being confident, you articulating, you being congruent, how on God's green earth do you expect them to pick the tools up out of the sky? Yeah. You have to illustrate it to them. You have to show them. And I also say, Liz, that children purchase a ticket to the Mommy and Daddy show every single day. Yeah. And they sit in the audience and they have the popcorn and they're nodding and they're taking notes. And unbeknownst to you, they're filing away. That's how a woman behaves. That's how a man behaves. That's how a wife behaves. That's how a husband behaves. That's how a mother behaves. And that's how a father behaves. So they're creating, 6 different files on 2 people daily. Yeah. And, we're all broken. You and I know this. We're all broken, but we're purposeful. We all have scars. But if you have not honored yourself enough to do the work on you before or during you become a parent, you're going to spill your wounds and your hurt and your unhealedness onto your children. Now,
without a shadow of a doubt. And what's more, as a teacher, you go into the school and you will spill it out there too.
Absolutely, 100%.
One of the things I really, really feel that personal development is vital in training colleges.
Yeah, Liz, I've a bit of a me being in a bonnet about that at the moment. You and I can talk about that on a different day because I go off on a tangent now. But
yeah,
I definitely.
Do you know the other thing too? And I haven't been somebody who slept walk for years and not seen it. It's sometimes when somebody like you maybe describes something, they kind of said, oh my God, that actually is me. But do you know one word that's coming up time and again, and for whatever reason lately, and it's the word narcissism.
Oh yeah.
Why? For whatever reason, I am hearing it, I am seeing it, I'm listening, it's extraordinary how it's coming up. Can you describe that, Nicola? So people can understand, maybe there's truth in there, and maybe somebody could learn that this is not okay, and it's not okay I pass it on to them.
Yeah, I'm really glad that you brought that up, Liz, because it's a conversation that I've opened up quite a lot on my page. I'm too delighted to discuss it with you. So my understanding of narcissistic behavior is somebody who always wants to be right, somebody who tells lies as if they're going to the shop to buy a pint of milk, somebody who will manufacture a situation that no matter who happens to be in the wrong, in inverted commas, it's never them. Yeah. And even if you have evidence to show this person that they are in the wrong or that they did lie, they will always twist it to say that it was your fault. They have a skill, and it is a skill, at making you believe that you are less than, that you are dependent on them, that you are not as important as everybody else, that you are mad, that nobody wants to be friends with you, sure nobody else would have you. The list is endless.
And an interesting thing I saw with somebody recently is how they can cut you away from your friends.
Oh yeah, isolation.
Isolation is a huge thing.
Yeah, isolation is massive because when they bring you into isolation, they have full control of you now.
Yeah.
And that's all that they want. I had a situation last night whereby a client of mine left a very narcissistic relationship and very abruptly, as in packed her bags and went. And she received a message 12 days later. And the message from the person wasn't, I'm sorry, can we fix this? It was all I, me, I need, what about me? And it's the mark of the person, it's the mark of the narcissist. Even still after that, I have left you, I am no longer here. They still are making it about them and they can't self-reflect. And there's a huge correlation, Liz, mark my words. There's a massive correlation between narcissism and addiction.
Yes.
So, one of the common threads between all addictions is being able to admit your faults and being able to put your hand up and say, do you know what? I actually messed up there and I'm really sorry for that. and I'm going to do my best to put that right. So that's for me.
What's an interesting thing too is that very, very small children, it's all about them, and then eventually they begin to grow up, and then it's they're beginning to. But with narcissists, it appears like you don't ever get the impression they're dependent, but they are. They're dependent on control. They're dependent on somebody else. They're dependent on keeping this good image that they have of themselves, because they want to believe the image they have of themselves. But it's an interesting thing, like as if almost growing up got shut down somewhere.
Well, look, narcissism always comes from trauma. So there's definitely a trauma in that person's life. And that doesn't make it okay.
But at least it releases the judgment about it. Doesn't mean to say you don't take an action, but the action isn't judgmental.
Yeah, well, listen, it's not coming from a judgmental space, but where it's coming from is a real space.
Yes.
That, even though that person has experienced trauma and they clearly didn't receive the supports that they needed in order to heal themselves or be okay, that doesn't mean that we need to accept it and plamass it and bake them a cake and tell them that they're amazing. That's not what it's about. The other part about it is, Liz, and I want to be really clear about this, some people, even when they are aware that they're out of order and have narcissistic behaviours, become addicted to it because it's very alluring and it's quite powerful in a negative sense. It's only short-term power. It's not real power. It's not actual power. Because actual power is used for the greater good of everybody. But they become addicted to their victims, and their victims become their oxygen. And when you take their oxygen away, you better watch out, because they will shift gears. They will, as I say it, they go into the canvassing phase. So if you break away from a narcissist or become a whistleblower on a narcissist, they will then go around the houses trying to canvass for votes. Look at me, poor me, look at what they did. Isn't that terrible? And they try to create a gang to gang up against you so that you're even further isolated. Am I making sense?
Yeah, total sense, yeah. That actually is probably one of the clearest descriptions I've had on narcissism, which is wonderful, because I know there are people out there, and what they're afraid of is if they confront that narcissist will turn nasty.
Oh, they generally
do. They will want to annihilate that person for even imagining they could switch off the oxygen.
Yeah, they generally do. But here's the other thing is, I remember a couple of years ago, I did a video on narcissism, and you know me, sometimes I can get very animated and very passionate now in a video. Yeah. But this particular day, I was very animated and very passionate about what I was speaking about. And the amount of people that messaged me about that, but one of the women that messaged me that day she didn't realize that she was married to a narcissist. And she was groomed her whole life to believe that if she behaved in a certain way with her husband, that life would be okay. Yeah. But what we don't know when we're a victim of a narcissist is that as soon as you get that one thing right that they're looking for, they change the goalposts without telling you. So you're never going to be right. You're never going to be up to mark. You're never going to be up to scratch, because they are the puppeteer and you are the puppet. They say dance and you say play the tune. Yeah. So there's never a right way, and there's never an end goal, and there's never the day when you've made it, because narcissists are very good at making you believe that you are the mental person and that there's something wrong with you.
Yeah, and that you're dependent.
It's all my fault. Yeah,
Oh my God, I have witnessed your passion for what you do. I know, and anybody that knows you knows how passionate. But it always, to me, seems to emanate from soul, from the depths of your being. Call it essence, call it working from soul. Yeah. Would you consider that being your authentic self is actually being your spiritual self?
Absolutely, Liz, I do. And I'm so glad you asked me that question, because it's very important for more people to be discussing stuff like that. Years ago, it used to be considered, like you'd be a white witch if you were talking about your soul and your spirit, and it's fluffy and rainbows and unicorns. But as you and I well know, if you actually do this work and do it properly, it's the hardest work you'll ever do in your life. Yeah. But with regard to me operating from my higher self, or, honoring my spirit, or operating from a soul space, what I've discovered over time is is that everybody's soul has a different set of values. Yeah. And your values come from your childhood experiences and your experiences through your challenges as you get older. How much you were burnt or how much you weren't burnt. Yeah. So even though I adore my husband and he's an amazing human being, there's one or two of his values that are not in alignment with mine. Yeah. But that's because his life experiences are slightly different to mine. We do have very similar experiences, very similar life experiences. So we grew up around the corner from each other. But my personal experiences were different to his when I was growing up. Yeah. So the reason why you'll see me being so passionate and, speaking from flow very fast and very loud is that I am speaking from my soul value space. And that is true for me. That is true for me. And all I can do, Liz, is offer people my truth. That's all I have.
And it seems to be at that little tender age of 7 that some way or other you did have a connection to be able to say to yourself, wow, there's something in here I want to understand. There's something in here that doesn't feel right. You know what I mean? I can feel it in my body, and you're only 7 years of age.
Yeah, I could definitely feel it in my body. But you know what else, Liz? Yeah. I do believe now that I was very much guided by my father's mother. Now, I never met my father's mother. She passed away before my father got married, and he was very young when he lost his mother. And, she's a legend from what I hear from her neighbours and my father. My father very rarely speaks about her because when he does speak about her, he gets very, very emotional. But from what I hear from her friends, she was a force to be reckoned with. She was a very moral woman. She looked after herself very well. She looked after her home very well. She was a very accommodating person, very kind, very giving, very involved in her community. And now, without shining my own halo, because you know that I'm not, but my father, when I was younger, used to say, my mother will never be dead as long as you're alive, Nicola. So I believe that...
I love it.
I would have been her fourth grandchild.
Yes.
And she was mad about my father. My father was her only son, her only child.
Yes.
And I just feel like she died when she was very young. I think she had an awful lot of unfinished business. And I truly, and I mean this in my heart and in my soul, Liz, I really feel that I'm very, very guided by this woman. I feel very close to her. I always have.
I think you're finishing off what she began.
Yeah, I agree with you. Now, I'm only realising that in the last number of years.
Oh.
But, any time I spoke up as a child or as a teenager where people were shocked, sometimes I'd be shocked and then I'd go, Jamie, that didn't come from me. I don't know where that came from. And I believe it was her standing behind me with her hand on my shoulder.
Yes. Nicola, you know what? How can people contact you?
Liz, people can contact me through my website. It's brand new and I'm mad about it. It's iampositivemindset.ie. And if people want to connect with me on social media, same page name through Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn, Twitter, Pinterest, pick a number, I'm on it.
Okay, that's absolutely brilliant. Now, Nicola, I just loved our conversation and I want to thank all our listeners for being with us again this week. But this is a conversation I would really like to continue next week if you would be willing to do this.
Liz, that would be my absolute pleasure because when you and I are talking, there's never enough time.
That's brilliant. Absolutely, because there is so much more in this, because I'd love to talk more about the tools and what people can do and where they can start and all this type of thing.
Oh, I'd love that. I'd love that, Liz.
Okay, you're on. Okay. Now, a big, huge thank you to all our listeners, and we'll listen in, please God, next week. Thank you so much.
You're so welcome.